What's up, all you fishing fools? Jim Walsh coming to you live from Walsh Hog Custom Bait. So I was going to talk to you a little bit about clear coat, and I've already done a few videos on clear coating with KBS. I use KBS with the dipping method, but I've had a lot of people ask me about the swim baits, like the bluegill pattern that I just showed y'all, and how to clear coat those, because it's a little bit different because it's a jointed bait. So just in case you hadn't seen the other videos or don't know, basically when you're dipping a normal bait, you would basically paint it, and then you have a hang wire, and then this is what we call a drip wire, and you would take this and insert it down into the KBS kind of slowly. I like to hold it in there a few minutes to let all the little air bubbles that may have formed to get out of it or whatever. And then you want to lift it up really slowly and kind of let it drip off so the bubbles come. And then as you hang it, you put a drip wire on the back of it. And the reason why you put this drip wire is because of that little drip that's right there on the end of there. You don't want that on your lure. So by putting that drip wire on there, it kind of draws that away from it. And then you basically dip it, and I usually do 2 coats. Some people only do 1. I do 2 just because we have some toothy species down here in the marsh, and it protects it a little better. And then basically I'll let this totally cure, and then I'll take these off and clear the eyes out and everything. Well, as you can imagine, like with these bluegill patterns, you have a split bait, and then your last eye is right here. So it's almost impossible, even if you use a drip wire and you were to hang it on this last eye, it's really not going to do you any good, because even if some drips off of here, it's probably going to still drip off this tail, and you'll get that little drip. Then also these joints that I showed you that I had put a rubber band in to hold the bait straight and basically to keep gunk from getting in there, you obviously can't dip this whole bait in here at one time. So what I have to do, and it takes a little bit longer, and if you'll notice, this part's coated, this part's not. So I'll basically go through here and I'll dip this top half, and I won't dip it all the way. I'll kind of go with a brush around these little edges here to try to keep as much as I can out of that joint. And then I'll brush it from there, put a drip wire, and I'll hang it just like I normally would a normal crankbait. I've bent this drip wire because I'm gonna hang this bait. And I had hung it like this so it would drip, and I basically have already got this part done. So all I did was I just took the drip wire and bend it so I could hang it like this. So like I showed you, obviously a drip wire is not gonna work on these guys. So what I have done, it's a little bit more of a pain in the butt. You have to do each half separately, or it's the way I do it. And then what I do is I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna take this brush, I'm gonna dip it in here, and I'm gonna go around these edges, just right through here, and try to keep as much out of that joint as I can. And then I'll dip the rest of it. I'll probably dip it about that far into the jar, and then I'll pull it out. And then what I'm gonna do, since the drip wire is not gonna work, I'm gonna have to sit here and I'm gonna have to really watch this bait. And it only takes 10, 15 minutes, depending on temperature and a lot of other things, for this clear coat to start getting tacky. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have to sit here and babysit this lure until it quits dripping. And then it'll quit dripping, and I'll get to this last little bit to where it's gonna be a little drip on the tail as this starts hardening up, and then I'll either take a prank brush or a Q-tip, and I'll just kind of pull that drip away, and then I'll just let it dry. I'll have to come back, several times checking it to make sure there's not another drip forming, and I'll have to keep knocking that off. They're a pain in the butt to do, but that's the only way that I've found to effectively do this. And like I said, with a regular crankbait and a drip wire, it really doesn't matter, man. You can dip it, kind of hang it, forget it, because that drip's gonna form on the end of that wire. Whereas here, it's gonna do it on the end of the lure. And I just have to keep knocking it off until it's dry enough it's not gonna drip anymore. So, you really have to pay attention. And you can kind of see, this is the one that I painted. And like I said, I just bent this drip wire because that's what I'm gonna use to hang with. But you can see this is with the eye and you know, I signed it. So half of it's done. Looks pretty good. When I get the whole thing done, I'll post a picture and show y'all. But anyway, that's just my tip for dipping these things. It's a question that gets asked a lot, and there may be other ways that people do it, but this is the only way that I've really found to do a jointed split bait, a jointed swim bait that's split like that really works. Now, another thing you can do is if you have one that has a lot of joints, and I even have done it with some of these, but you really don't get quite as thick of a coating on it, is you can actually take this KBS and just paint on some really thin coats and just keep working it to where it wouldn't drip. But to me, the more you touch that clear coat and move it around and all, the more chance you have of getting air bubbles and everything else in it. So I would rather just paint a good bit on and let it drip and just knock the drip off. I find I have a little bit more consistent results with that. So anyway, you know, if you're interested in doing swim baits or whatever, that's definitely one way to do it. I'm sure there are others, but that's what works for me. So you know, don't be afraid to give it a try. But again, doing it like this, you got to keep knocking that drip off till it quits dripping. So, you know, you got to babysit these baits. There's no way around it. Anyway, I hope that was a helpful tip for you. Anybody that's trying to do swim baits or thinking about doing them, Walsh Hog Custom Baits, baby, get you some.